In a world with only hot takes,
Two college friends try to cool down sports media.
join Jack and Jared every week as they tackle the biggest stories in the NFL.
And give the reasonable football analysis you won't hear anywhere else.
Welcome to 710 Sports.
Welcome back to 710 Sports with
Jack.
and Jared. Thanks for joining us the week of the 2023 NFL Draft. That's right, 710 Sports is back to give you the most original, coherent, intelligent, and reasonable draft analysis that you're going to get all week and probably, based through the whole year. I mean,
Probably after the draft as well.
I mean, we have been grinding out there. We've been to every college game. We've been to every practice. We're basically unpaid NFL scouts. And we're going to tell you exactly what's what and who's who with the NFL draft. But let me just push the mic to Jack, who is really our NFL draft expert. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing pretty well. Definitely happy to be here on our podcast. Yeah, I mean, as Jared said, I mean, we definitely have a lot of original takes. We've really dived a lot into the film. Yeah, and by that I'm being sarcastic. But anyway, let's move on. Move on to our first topic.
Believe it or not, we're not actual NFL scouts. It's
we are not NFL scouts, unfortunately.
But we do have some interesting takes and analysis.
And I think generally our we have enough reasonable analysis that I think at least some of this will still be interesting, even if we have not been to all the games and pro days. But yeah, I mean, let's move right into it. I think our first topic we're going to cover is the wish lists topic, and that is kind of, we're going to think about a couple teams, especially our favorite teams. I'm a Patriots fan. Jared is a Cowboys fan, and thinking about what sorts of things they need. We may cover other teams as well. I just know those are two teams that we're gonna kind of focus on because we know it. We might hit maybe the Texans are in an interesting spot because they have picks 2 and 12 and have needs on both sides of the ball. And are being projected to take things on both sides of the ball, so take players. So yeah, I mean, Jared, do you want to start with the Cowboys? I start with the Patriots. Up to you. Passing it to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can go a little bit on the wish list for the Cowboys. The way that I look at the Cowboys draft this year is if you go back the last couple of years, they've really been very defensive minded, and I think that it's definitely shown. Last year with basically our strong defensive performance, one of the best defenses in the league. And so I think in 2021, the first 5 or 6 picks were all defensive picks. And that's when Micah Parsons was picked in the first round. And this is pretty odd for the Cowboys, a team that seems to always like to go with the flashy offensive pick. The year before we went with CD Diggs or CD Lamb, sorry. But Diggs was right after that as well.
Yeah.
But just making sure, at this point, whatever the Cowboys are doing with the picks, I think Jerry Jones has sort of let, his sons take over a little bit more of the draft process. And I think that that's been really beneficial. And I think that they're doing a generally good job. So I'd like to see that trend continue. Because I think the defense was the strength of the team this year and will continue to be. So I wouldn't mind anything like a defensive line pick. It's always good to have depth there. We've picked well there before. Even you think some names like Odigizua was a draft pick from a couple of years ago. He's really performed really well. We have a rotation of defensive linemen that come in and out, not just Lawrence and Parsons. So yeah, some people are saying running back. I don't really like the idea of taking a running back. We have Tony Pollard on the franchise tag, and I think that we have a good enough running system and offensive line that you can plug in a lot of guys. Tony Pollard looks really good, and he's a 4th round pick. I see no reason to reach or possibly, take a 1st round pick on a running back. I mean, we just did that with Zeke, and look where we are now. He's obviously cut. So. I like the idea of them going defense first. And, even I wouldn't mind if they're going to go offense to go with a wide receiver if they really like somebody. I know that they just got Brandon Cooks, but I'm a little bit concerned about, you know, Brandon Cook's health, and he's an older veteran guy. I don't know if he's going to be the exact boost that Dak Prescott needs. We know he needs a lot of help. I don't know. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, for the receiving core, is Gallup's still on the team for this coming year, right? So you have CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, Brandon Cooks, decent, but yeah, definitely, I could definitely see using another guy if they like one of the top wide receivers off the board. I'll be talking about this for the Patriots, but I'm not sure. I feel like a lot of what I'm hearing and what I see, the analysis I see, is that the wide receiver class isn't super great, or that some of the areas where there are players, there's a lot more slot talent rather than necessarily the sorts of guys you might want to take in the first round. Yeah. Right? There's a lot of slot guys, Zay Flowers out of Boston College, but not as confident about the sort of guys who might turn into a Stephon Diggs, or some sort of down the field threat the way Amari Cooper may have been for the Cowboys.
Right.
Which yeah, and as for the running back, the one pushback I would give is, hey, you said look where Zeke got you, but that was also, it's 2023 now. That was 2016's draft. There were still some years of some very high level performance out of Zeke. That being said, I'm gonna push back against myself. I think your point about the offensive system, about the fact that they already have Tony Pollard, I think a lot of those points are valid and are and kind of overtake the value that I think a first round running back might have. If Bijan Robinson is supposed to be like top 5 guy in the class just at running back, rather than a high value quote unquote position, that definitely, like, I could still see that could add a lot of value, and having 2 running backs, I think it would add a lot of value. But I definitely think that the drop off compared to using that first round versus using a pick on a third round guy, obviously there's a huge difference. This guy Bijan's projected to be amazing, but yeah, will it be a difference? Because I mean, Saquon was he the number 2 overall pick? I think. Yeah, I think he's so. Number 2 overall pick, and he's been pretty good, and he's had good years, but I don't know if he's lived up to the number 2 overall pick. And I think it's tough.
Have
obviously,
one playoff game in that time, and they've only been in the playoffs once.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and Cowboys are at pick 25 or something like that, not pick 2. But even still, right, sure. Even still, I'd say that's a consideration. But yeah, I mean,
so What are you thinking? What are you thinking about the Patriots? What would be on your wish list of where you think they'd like to go with their picks this year?
Yeah, so my wish list is definitely, so they're picking at 14, right? They're picking at 14. My wish here's the big wish list, right? The big wish list is, unfortunately, is what everyone's saying, right? This is not an original take in any sense of the word. Tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, right? Everyone says that for the Patriots. Here's the issue in my mind right now when I'm thinking about this. I look at wide receiver. I see, yeah, I mean, if they can trade back, I've heard, and again, what I've heard, it could be a lot of smoke. It could be who knows. Is that people don't like, a lot of people are looking to trade back. That there may not be as many people looking to trade up, especially to 14, right? Because at 14, potentially quarterbacks will be gone, potentially so on and so forth. Which makes and right, Patriots picking a wide receiver, a first round wide receiver, don't like it, right? They have not had a good track record there. It's not I mean, from a prediction standpoint, it's not really a Patriots thing to do. It is not a Patriots thing to do to pick a wide receiver first round. And when they do it, doesn't work. Cornerback, right? Cornerback, that I can start to see. I think after that wide receiver bit, I don't think, even though it's a need, if you like a second or third round guy, toss one of those. They picked up Juju Smith-Schuster. I forget if we talked about this. They picked up, when our last podcast was, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki. Those are 2 pretty good additions, even though they lost Jacoby Myers. I like Juju Smith. Or I think Juju Smith-Schuster has the potential to be better, even though Jacoby and Mac had a good connection. Mike Gesicki, I think, is a big addition. Right, they definitely need more help in the receiving core, but given their track record, given everything, given the draft class, I don't know if I like that at 1, at the first round pick. You want to toss a later round pick, you like someone, that's a different story, right? Because I do think they need it. I think they should spend one of their first three, like 3 or 4 draft picks should be spent on a receiver, but I don't think the first one. Tackle is really the big, for me, that's the biggest need at the Patriots right now. I don't like either of their tackles. I think they actually only have one tackle. I mean, I know they have backup, like only one starting tackle, who had a fine season, but not a very good season. I think part of that issue though was I think they moved him from right tackle to left. Trent Brown. I think this past year they moved him from right tackle to left. Yeah, well, yeah, he's gonna do worse. He's not I get that. So for me, tackle's a big piece. The issue with that is a lot of teams need tackles. A lot of people have mocked drafts, have potentially 3 tackles going for the Patriots. I counted it out. I thought there were, I counted 5 teams who I thought might take a tackle before 14. I said, and of course, this is not teams that will, but Raiders, Bears, Eagles, Jets, Titans all might. Of course, a team like the Titans might want a quarterback. A team like the Raiders, who knows what's going to happen, given their drafting history. All sorts of Eagles can go in a lot of directions because they just made the Super Bowl. Right? A lot of stuff there may or may not happen. But the Patriots have to take the 4th guy off the board. Darnell Wright, I think, is kind of projected to be the 4th tackle. I mean, I'm here saying, like, for me, I'd just be worried about the drop-off. Are you reaching for a guy who's not that good just because you really need tackle? Or, my biggest worry, what if he's not even there? What if 4 tackles are gone before you pick? I'm not confident the Patriots will trade up. I mean, they might, but they're often more of a trade-down team. Right. That makes me worried. What if there isn't a tackle? Cornerback is a kind of similar story. If one of the top couple guys falls, take it, right? Because that's another need. I think. Actually, more important thing about the tackle class, because I looked into this. The tackle class looks weak this year, at least at the top. Looking at the top 64 on the consensus big boards, there are only 7 tackles in this top 64, whereas the past couple of years have had 9, right? Which is only 2 more guys, but that's important. And looking at it, there's a big drop off after the first 3 or 4 guys. There's a big drop off in terms of where they're ranked, as opposed to other years that has had a bit more, depth throughout, rather than top couple of guys are great, everyone else is bad, or not bad, but not as good. Which makes me worried about that at second. Tackle's that's a big wish list, but that is like up to chance or up to trading up. Cornerback, I think given the Patriots, I think it's a need, but unless one of the top couple of guys falls to you, which they might, right? We don't know what's going to happen. Unless one of the top couple cornerback prospects falls to you, I'm not sure if it's a big enough need. The Patriots tend to do well with scheming and, slotting in guys. J.C. Jackson wasn't a super high pick. He played well on the Patriots and then went to the Chargers. I know there's injury stuff there. Went to the Chargers, was not good. I think the Patriots will have some scheming stuff. They can find value in later rounds. This draft class has value. I think their 2nd round pick, if I'm going to go real detailed, I think their 2nd round pick should be a cornerback, because I don't think they should take it 1st round unless if Devin Witherspoon, if some top 3, top 2 cornerback prospect falls. That's a different story. I'm assuming that's not going to happen. But there's a stretch of good, very early 2nd, late 1st, sort of boundary guys I think might fall to them at 46. If not, Patriots have a ton of late round picks. They could trade up a couple spots and nail a very high value cornerback in the 2nd round. What I really, my hot take that I've done a lot on this, and I've been talking a bit. I think the Patriots might go edge. I think they might go defensive end here. They obviously have had a good defensive line. Josh Uche had a breakout year. Matthew Judon's been amazing, but and their other guys like Dietrich White, like they have a good defensive line. But I've seen other people talk about this, and I looked into it a bit myself. But guys like Lucas Van Ness or Miles Murphy, right? They're both kind of have a lot of raw talent. How I've seen them described, a lot of raw talent guys, not a lot of technique is as much necessarily. Lucas Van Ness is only really a power guy. But from what I've seen, both of these guys are 6'5", 275. That's the same exact build, off I think by a pound, compared to Dietrich Wise on the Patriots. And both of these, who's their starting defensive end, both of these guys can bulk up. I've heard from other analysts that Lucas Van Ness could potentially put as much as 20 pounds on to hit 6'5", 295. That's the same as Lawrence Guy, the Patriots' other defensive end. The Patriots really and I mean Lucas Van Ness especially, but really him and Miles Murphy can both play at multiple spots on the line. But Lucas Van Ness can play, if you need him to line up against a guard, he can line up against a guard, especially if he puts on some pounds, which he could do. And I mean, importantly, both of these guys might be there at 14. I have faith in the Patriots' defensive coaching. If these guys are both more raw talents, quote unquote, I trust the Patriots' ability to draft and develop defensive tackles or like defensive line. I trust them to do well on that front. And I mean, yeah, is there any other notes on that?
Listen,
I mean, not really, but it's yeah.
I see
And
the
and I
Patriots.
think they'll be there, right? And that's the other difference. I think one of them or both of them will be there at 14, even if they trade back to 18 or something. I've seen them if they trade with the Steelers at 17 or something like that. I think at least one of them will be there, and that's
Right.
for me availability at that position is a big piece of this because I don't know if tackle will be, but I think edge will be. I think either of these guys could really fit the team.
Right, and then it's the idea of would they like to be able to try to plan their draft a little bit better? So trying to plan to take a guy who's definitely going to be there. They did it last year, definitely.
Coltrane's definitely going to be there. Yeah,
projected to go second round, right? So I think that the Patriots have, since Tom Brady has left, they've really shown that they're willing to do a lot of different things in the draft that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have done, as well as in free agency. Like, I feel like it's been very different the last few years, and I feel like really anything could happen. I could see them trading up if they really wanted to, just because I feel like Belichick is doing a little bit of throwing spaghetti at the wall right now, and so we're gonna see what happens. But, do we want to go to where we want to go next?
I mean, it's, or for one thing, do you have any real interesting? I mean, I think the Texans are kind of interesting. For one thing, with the number, it's more maybe the number 2 pick, right? Maybe which coincides with the Texans. If the Texans keep it, then we could talk about number 12. That's their pick later in the first round. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of your thinking here. So new coach, D'Amico Ryans, right? Defensive minded coach coming into a team that doesn't really have a quarterback. They have a 3rd round pick from a couple years ago, Davis Mills. Don't have a lot on offense. Have some guys on defense because they spent some high picks last year, but a lot of needs on this team. Where do you think they might go at number 2? Do you think it depends who the Panthers pick at 1? Do you think they try to trade out of it? That's one thing that there's some news starting up about that. What are your feelings on this?
So right now, the Vegas has gotten some inside information, and they have basically Will Levis to the Texans. Is it Will Levis the number 2 pick? Either way, he's projected to go number 2 currently. Now, I don't know if that means the Texans are going to trade out of it or they're going to pick him. What I don't quite understand is why Will Levis is the one going number 2. If you look at the 4 QBs that are probably going to be drafted the first round, I just based off of what I've seen, the film I've watched, highlights, lowlights, looking at the stats, understanding that he played it, with Kentucky, so maybe not as much help, but I just don't. I think he might be the worst quarterback, especially when you put in some of this weird stuff that I don't necessarily understand about him being afraid of milk and this stuff. It could all just be ridiculous, and maybe it doesn't matter off the field, but just a little weird to me.
It's a little weird. I saw a video of him rotten banana or aged banana. I don't know if it was rotten. Like biting through the peel, eating the peel, not peeling it and then eating it. No, like brown banana and just eating it. Yeah.
I mean, this is supposed to be the leader of the locker room. If this guy's eating peels of bananas and he's afraid of milk, is he really going to be the leader of men here? I mean, I don't know.
Oh, do you not know? I believe he the other stuff. I think there are question marks about. But I believe he actually puts mayo in his coffee. That I believe is real. I'm not joking. The other things I'm not as confident about. That I think is actually real.
Here's the thing.
I can do the notes.
If Bryce Young put mayonnaise in his coffee, I'd say, okay, well, Bryce Young is a Heisman winner. The dude, had a ridiculous junior season and then still a great senior season in college. He's obviously the most ready. He's, the only thing that people are concerned about him is his height. If he's afraid of milk, I say, okay, listen, we've seen enough.
Yeah.
But frankly, Will Levis, he's got a big arm. He's developmental. He's going to take some time. But I don't know. When he throws the deep ball, I don't like the way it looks. I think a lot of times it comes out, wobbly. Some of his best, highlights, I see him underthrowing receivers. I mean, that's just what I saw on tape. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a big arm or anything. I think he does have a pretty big arm. I've seen him throw the ball deep, but I'm just not sure. He's certainly not as good right now as Bryce Young. And with all these other weird things, I would, if I had to pick QBs 1 to 4, he's going to be 4. It's obviously it's no news that there's 2 guys who are, more proven, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. But if I look at the 4 QBs, even just if you watch them throw, maybe it's just what I like to see. But I think that Stroud and Richardson actually throw a much prettier ball. They really can put air under the ball. They can throw the outside really nice. Whereas I feel like Young and Levis, they throw a little bit more of like the straight sort of, hard type of ball. It's not as there's not as much air under it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just not as pretty to me. When I see Stroud just let one loose to the sideline and it just drops into the bucket, I think he's got the best looking throw of all the guys. And so that's why I wouldn't be necessarily surprised if he actually goes number 1, because he's bigger than Bryce Young. He does, like, his stats are good for this year. They're pretty much right on with Bryce Young's from this year as well. They both have 66% completion percentage. He actually has Stroud has a higher rating this year than Young, and a better TD to interception ratio, although they're close. So I don't think he's playing as hard a competition in the Big Ten with Ohio State. So there's some of that. But I like Stroud and Young. And I said I didn't quite understand why the Panthers would move up if they're going to roll a dice. Like, if they could have rolled a dice and gotten a QB at 9. I actually completely understand why they moved up. I think that Young and Stroud are considerably better, and they are for sure, if you want to get one of those guys, it's for sure worth moving up, because I think Levis and Richardson, there's a lot of question marks about those guys.
Yeah.
And if they really want the QB, which they do, I don't think that there's a wrong pick right now between Young and Stroud. That's sort of my breakdown of the QBs, just as a blanket. And so I think the Texans should go with whoever the Panthers don't pick. I think that they're like Stroud or Young are going to be better than Davis Mills. And if they're not going to take a QB, or they really want Levis, I guess they could trade out of it and pick him 12 or something. But I don't know. I just don't. I would take one of these 2 top guys if I was the Texans.
Yeah, I think, for me, hearing you say that definitely, I don't want to say not changes my opinion, but definitely gives me good perspective on that. Because I mean, if Young and Stroud are kind of in that neck and neck area, then I agree. Pick at 2. The one thing I could see, and what I might be thinking here, is, what if the Texans are looking to tank, right? They're looking to get a good old fashioned tank for a year. Pray that you get the number 1 pick by intentionally losing games, and hope the NFL does not take away your picks. Because I mean, with even if they pick good defensive guys, right? Davis Mills, maybe he'll be a good backup, right? And he's played decent. There's been times he's played decently, and stuff like that. But I don't think with him and the offensive talent on that team that you're going to win many games, even if you can pick some real studs on the defense.
Right.
Which is why, So in that case, I think it's going to be hard to tank for the number 1 overall pick. Right. It's always hard to do that. So I think taking a quarterback when you have number 2 is pretty good. Unless if they like all the guys and they think they can trade back to the Colts, and they think, oh well, the Colts are going to take Stroud, we'll trade back 2 spots, or we'll trade with the Cardinals. Whatever. Like just if they can move back 1 or 2, and they like Levis or Richardson, or apparently if Levis goes 2, I mean that's a different thing that I also saw, but recently, that's its own topic. If they like all 4 guys, and they don't feel super strongly about it, then if they want to trade back a couple spots, but if they trade back more than to after the Colts, that does get kind of dangerous in my mind. Or after the Seahawks, whatever, not like that sort of range. The one thing I'll say about, for maybe pick 12, if they pick offense, right? If they pick quarterback at 2, for either pick 12 for generally, or kind of the potential, me kind of arguing for them. like picking on the defense even at 2, or if they trade back at 4, would be DeMeco Ryans, right? He was the inside linebackers coach for the 49ers when they drafted Fred Warner, right? Who's obviously an amazing inside linebacker. He was also just their defensive coordinator the past 2 years. Both years they've had great defenses. So he was a great defensive coordinator and helped develop one of the probably the best inside linebacker, middle linebacker in the league right now. Like his rookie year as inside linebackers coach was the year they drafted Fred Warner. And so I could really see him valuing the defense. I mean, obviously, right? Obviously,
Right.
but I mean in the drafts, right? I'm talking about. I could really see him knowing himself, right? Right, to Ryan's knowing himself and saying, "Hey, like this guy's good. I can develop this guy," right? So that could be many things. That could be one of those guys, the more developmental D-line prospects I mentioned. That could be taking one of them at 12. That could be taking a linebacker in the second round. It could be a lot of things. But yeah, because they just have a lot of picks, the Texans. But yeah, that's the one thing if I were the Texans, I would favorite, my wish list would have a lot of defensive positions on it, but I could really see, did they pick up someone? They picked up a wide receiver in free agency, right? I forget who. I would have to. I don't know. I think they did. Not anyone amazing, but someone okay. I mean, that might be the thing. They might have to go double offense, right? I could see them maybe needing a receiver. At 12 is kind of early. I think maybe they go tight end. Tight end at 12 is early too, but this draft has some good tight ends. If they could trade back at 12, that might be what I would do. Take a quarterback at 2, trade back at 12, try to go maybe a team like the Patriots, frankly. Maybe they're trying to jump a couple teams to take a tackle. Trade back a couple spots, take a tight end, right? That actually works well. Green Bay's projected to take a tight end. If you can, then you get to still pick in front of Green Bay, but you've still moved back a couple spots with the Patriots, something like that. So then something like that, because I think double offense, if you're going to pick Stroud, especially if you're going to pick Levis or Richardson, I think they need help, right? Especially those more developmental guys. If they pick Levis, I think you got to surround him with more. They have some pieces on that, good running back, good tackle, Laramie Tunsil, but yeah, they definitely, I think, would need more help on the offense. So they might need to use both if they go offense. Unless they're tanking. And if they're tanking and just want to build a good team for 3 years from now, take defense. But yeah,
Listen,
that's about it for me on that. Yeah.
I don't know if I really believe the tanking thing, because they
I agree.
tanked this year.
I agree.
So I feel like
I agree. Yeah, but that was maybe a different thing. Maybe I think DeMeco Ryans will have a longer leash, so to speak.
100%.
Like I think
I understand that sentiment. It's like, oh well, we're not trying to win
I
the
still don't think they
championship
should,
this year, but like it's it's a long-term building plan.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
not as concerned if they have
winning
a developmental
helps develop though.
quarterback.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I do
could see
want to.
that.
I do want to shout out one thing here that I really think.
Yeah.
If Vegas is saying Will Levis is going to whoever, whatever, if it's the Texans or anybody else, I'm assuming Young is going number 1. If Stroud is there at 3, I can almost guarantee someone will move up and swap with the Cardinals. That's what I would do if I needed a QB, and I would.
Colts
I would
nightmare.
Right, I would give a lot.
Nightmare
The Colts could do it too. They might say because
they could too.
Someone should move up to that Cardinals position because the Cardinals they have Murray locked up, so they definitely can basically hold a ransom for that pick, and in that 5 minutes or whatever, basically take. They probably have everybody's offers already. Hey, if Stroud's there, we're willing to swap and give you a first round next year or whatever it may be. And there's going to be offers like that. And I don't think it's just guys in the top 10. I mean, I think if I had to pick somebody, Commanders, Washington Commanders, if there's enough time for the new ownership to come in and start pointing fingers, I think it makes perfect sense for them to come in and say,
we want the guy.
Exactly. We need to do something and not have XFL quarterbacks starting for this franchise.
You don't like Sam Howell. You're not a Sam Howell fan.
I don't know. I'm not. Some people do like him. I don't think
I
like Heineke better. I like Heineke better, and I don't think he's the long-term solution. So if Stroud is there, I think that it would make sense for these guys to say, hey, we're turning a new page. We're going to give up a first round next year. We're going to swap our pick with the Cardinals in this, in this draft. and we're gonna go and get Stroud. But I could see the Bucks, the Titans, the Falcons,
Yeah,
even the Jets,
a
which
lot
we
of
might
teams.
talk about a little bit. If the Jets
Yeah,
are out on the A-Rod game, they should
they
swing
need to
on
do
that.
something.
They should
Oh
swing
yeah,
it.
they 100% should. If Stroud's there at 3, they 100% should, because
Right.
otherwise they're in a doomsday. Well,
So
I think we
so
will touch on that, but yeah,
that's honestly my
yeah,
like. It
yeah,
would be like very exciting, but I would not be shocked,
mm,
especially if the
I think,
Texans take Levis.
yeah,
That's just that's wild
yeah.
to me. So
A Commander's trade up, if someone like Stroud falls, does make a lot of sense, because that team has a lot there. They got a lot defensive line. They have an amazing defensive line. They have some receiving talent.
yeah,
I could see how things work. Yeah, I mean that kind of moves on. That was kind of naturally segues into the "Are you serious?" segment, asking if certain things we've seen, if they're serious.
mm,
One of those is 4 quarterbacks in the top 5 picks. Well, we kind of just covered that a bit. It sounds like we're pretty confident Bryce Young at 1 there, but yeah, if Vegas thinks it's Will Levis at 2, that does make me have to think it's Stroud at 3, unless there's something we're not seeing. That
right.
makes me think it has to be that, because a team will trade up. And then for 4 quarterbacks, top 5 picks, do we think anyone at that point, do the Colts bite on Richardson, right? Because they need a quarterback. Do they pick their pick of the defensive talent in this class? What do you this kind of is a natural question. Where do you think Richardson goes? If what happens, what we just said, right? If what we were just kind of talking about, what do you make of Anthony Richardson here? You liked him more than Levis. So
Yeah,
where do you think the Seahawks take him? Do you think the Colts take him?
I would hope the
Obviously,
Seahawks
Seahawks
don't
only
take
10.
him. I understand some people like the argument that he is going to take some time. So you put him behind Geno Smith for even a year. He's got a big arm. And frankly, if I look at the 4 QBs, I actually like the way he throws the ball. I think he throws the ball similarly to
Mm,
Stroud. He puts a lot of air on it. He throws a pretty spiral.
mm,
But he just doesn't have enough of a resume. He hasn't been he didn't play the 4 years in college, and his stats, you can just see it. His stats, they're just not in line with even some of Levis's stats. So those guys are close, but I just like the way that like Richardson looks when he plays, and I think he's obviously, he's a more of a. If you look at Bryce Young, he's really like mobile in the pocket, and he can kind of dip and dive, so to speak.
mm.
But when it's
Yeah.
down the field running, I think Richardson is a lot more dangerous. And if you wanted to like
Mm.
have some sort of design run type QB, I think he's going to
Yeah.
be doing a little bit more of that. That's more in his repertoire. Not to say Young couldn't, but I think Young is more of a, if I need to, I can run well, but I'm not necessarily. I'm looking to throw.
So potentially like Jalen Hurts' running abilities, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe even a little, because he's
Yeah.
bigger than Jalen Hurts. So maybe
Yeah.
a
He
little
is
bit
bigger
more
than
of a Josh Allen type. I see it
Mm.
a little bit more like that type of comp.
Yeah.
But he's just not like, if you look at some of he's made some wacky plays. I mean, all these guys do in college, but he's made some wacky
Yeah.
picks. And so some of it is
Josh
it's going to take
Allen-esque.
time. But if I was going to take a floater on
Yeah.
a guy, I would take it on Richardson. But
Mm.
with Levis, if Levis goes early, then everything gets thrown off. In my head, I would think that Levis might go around 10, Richardson might go around 5 or 6, right? So
Mm.
like, Richardson might end up in the Colts, and then Levis goes to, I don't know, the Falcons, or somebody else moves up.
The
to
Bucks
get him.
trade up. Yeah.
Right,
Something. Yeah.
exactly. But now, it's kind of all thrown off. If the Colts really need a QB, which they do, they've been doing this veteran QB thing for a while. They kind of end up shoehorning themselves into Richardson, which, as I've made the argument before, I actually see no problems with that, because basically you get to say, hey, he was the last of the first round pick talents at QB. We took him because that's all we could. And if it turns out bad, it's like, hey, that was all that was left.
Yeah.
And if it turns out great, you get to
Yeah.
say, these guys passed on him and we took him, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I actually like if it literally goes first 3 picks QBs, I don't mind the Colts taking it if that's what they really need. And I could see it. I really could.
Yeah. I think, and I think I definitely agree with that kind of, especially the Colts. I mean, the reason I mentioned Jalen Hurts wasn't even for the running comp. It was more just because I believe the new head coach of the Colts, I believe, is former offensive coordinator of the Eagles, Stain Steichen or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
but is the Eagles offensive coordinator on that Super Bowl run they just went on. That was why I was thinking that, well, okay, Jalen Hurts just had this like third year step, right? Had this amazing year. Is a more mobile quarterback, obviously different, like you said, different running style, but like that was part of it. Well, okay, this is the type of coach I could potentially see, offensive minded coach who coached a similar style of dual threat quarterback, as Richardson would hope to develop into being, which is why I was saying that. But yeah, I mean, I agree at that point. I think them at 4. A lot of people, say potentially a team like the Seahawks, have him sit behind, but that's why I would think at that point, if you're the Seahawks, I mean, like, I could see if a team just wants to hop up a couple spots, if the Falcons want to jump potential other teams, I could see the Seahawks making a trade back because they still want to get a good defensive talent, but they know they can trade back if a team wants to jump up for the sort of because of the thirst. Because at that point, there's a Russian quarterback. So let's say the Colts do something random. They pick a random quarterback, or they pick a defensive end or something. Then the Seahawks now are in that hot seat where a lot of teams are going to want to trade up the same way a lot of teams wanted to trade up to 3. So yeah, that's what I think. I think the 4 quarterbacks top 5 picks is definitely in play, especially if Will Levis is at 2. If Will Levis isn't at 2 and teams are going to kind of take things slow, maybe not jump, but if it's Will Levis at 2, then yeah, I think everything you said would make sense. Other talks, we kind of talked about this. What do you think of the possibility of, let's say one of these quarterbacks falls, be it Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, right? Let's say it's not Levis at 2. Yeah. What do you think about the Seahawks or the Lions? These are teams picking at 5 and 6, and they also have first round picks just later, like 18 and 20. I think the Seahawks have 20. The Seahawks have the higher earlier one, and the later second one. Lions have 6 and 18. So they have another first round pick to pick if they have another hole to fill. They do have another first round pick. They can potentially move up from that separately. But if they see one of these more project quarterbacks, more of these developmental sort of guys, who could maybe sit behind good veteran quarterbacks like Goff and Geno, what's your sort of feeling on that?
Yeah, I think
I know you kind of just said no, but I'm curious. Yeah, I'm still curious.
Like I said, with the Seahawks, I don't like the move because I really do like Geno. I think it's just going to be, unless it's 100% a knockout pick and they're 100% right on one of these guys, and they become Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts type guy. People will say, you're kind of pushing Goff or Geno Smith out the door. And if that happens, and then the QB comes in and is a bust, you say, well, you could have extended these guys probably for lower than top of the market value, over a couple more years. Instead, you kind of push him out the door with a new rookie, trying to take a swing, and there
actually alienates the locker room. Maybe guys, if guys like Geno, and I'm not in the Seahawks locker room, but I could see that as well. What if guys love Geno? You kind of push him out a bit, yeah.
Right. So I don't like the move for either of those because the Goff and Geno had bounce back years. But obviously there's a certain, like, if they really don't like those guys long term and they want to, they are in a good position to take somebody.
Yeah.
I just think that they're going to get a lot of nice offers if guys are still around. If they have the opportunity to trade back, take those trades. That's what I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely agree because I think both of these guys are fairly young. I mean, I think Goff's like 27 or 28 or something, I think. Geno's a bit older, but it's still only like 32. If he has another good year next year, which he very well may, he had a pretty good year. If he has a good year next year with a team that should be taking a big step up if you invest in it, right? Because they have 2 first-round picks. I think they might have 2 second-round picks too. But for that, I could definitely see if he has another year like his last year, I see no reason why he wouldn't have a couple more, right? If he has and so I could definitely see, because he's young enough. He's like 32 or something, but I could easily see, even if we talk about non-Brady guys, guys definitely played it till they're 35 or something. And I think going with that would be my, especially for an older coach like Pete Carroll, who's 72 or something like that, 71. Right. Yeah, I mean, I got to think at some point. He's really going
to plan for, like,
I know he lives football,
or Levis
but
to be good 3-4 years from now. Like,
yeah, it would just be tough because at that point, like I know he lives, breathes, eats, drinks football, but still, smokes, anything. But still, like, I'd have to think there's an element to that in his mind. Yeah, I mean for me that's kind of it on that. Last Are You Serious? Unless you want to talk about the other thing I have there, is Packers taking a receiver in the first round. Packers, what are your thoughts on Packers investing in the offense? I'm not sure if they've picked a non-quarterback in the first round in 15 years, maybe. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I'd have to check that. But yeah, what are your thoughts on them? I more see them, mocked at getting a tight end, taking maybe the first tight end off the board. What are your thoughts on them taking a wide receiver? I have seen that before. Are
Well,
they
I think
serious when they
they're
say
just
that?
feeding into the Aaron Rodgers media cycle, like, oh, they won't take a wide receiver in the first round while he's there, but as soon as he leaves, they do. I think, obviously everyone's looking for a soundbite on McAfee. And that would just be, I feel like that, even if it's the right thing to do, it just is like bad timing and spiteful. I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah. No, yeah. I think it might be the first. At least taking something there, I think would be the right thing to do. But it definitely would feel kind of toxic. It would feel kind of like, wow. The whole time we've been saying, give Aaron help. He has back-to-back MVP seasons. Give Aaron help, and then they pick someone. Last time they picked offense in the first round was, I think, was the quarterback that they're starting now, whose name I'm blanking on.
Jordan Love.
Jordan Love, yeah. They picked him at like 22 or 23 or something. I don't know what quarterbacks were there, but that was like the 2020 draft. I bet there were wide receivers there that they could have taken. I bet there was something they could have taken there that I think definitely would have helped the Packers. At the same time, but I think it's what they should do now, right? I think there's not a whole lot, admittedly, in the sense that I think they would admit there's not a whole lot on that offensive court. They were kind of relying on Aaron to carry a lot of that. Of course, Aaron Jones as well. But they were kind of counting on Rodgers to carry that offense a bit. They were not just a bit. They were 100% doing that, especially with Devontae Adams gone. So I think they need something if they want to know what they've got with Jordan Love. I think this is coming up to his last year of his rookie contract, I believe. I know they can potentially extend him. I know there's other stuff there, but
The 5th-year option.
I think
they,
yeah, 5th-year option.
Yeah.
They can do that because he's a first-round pick, but you kind of had to know what you got there, and I could really see if you can pick the top tight end. Like you probably get your pick of the litter with tight ends there. You might get your pick of the litter with wide receivers there. Even if they trade back a couple picks, if they think they can trade with the Bucks, let's say Levis falls. Bucks want to skip the Commanders. I could see them trading up and they pick at like 18, no 19, wherever they pick. I could still see the first wide receiver or tight end not being one of those two not being taken off yet, and they get their pick of the litter. I think they should do it, but it definitely will lead to some funny media moments there.
So let's stick with the Packers. Maybe let's. I think that it's, to me, for the planning of both these teams. Maybe not so much the Packers, but definitely the Jets. Once we get around draft night, we got to be able to figure out where Aaron Rodgers is going. So what do you think is going to happen with this Aaron Rodgers trade? Is it going to go through? Is he going to end up somewhere else? What do you think?
I mean, yeah. So here we go. Just for those watching or listening. So it's Sunday right now. The draft is Thursday. The first round of the draft is Thursday. The second round will be on Friday, right? So that's day 2. And that's why if a trade doesn't happen by then, unless the Jets have some real assurances, if trade doesn't happen by Wednesday, that's trouble for them, right? Because they've been kind of the whole offseason them kind of planning around having him. I think they signed they signed Alan Lazard, I think, a guy like they signed one of Aaron's guys as a wide receiver to a relatively nice contract, I think. I mean, that's a big. So to kind of start from the top, I mean, one of the what I've kind of heard a fair amount about is 2 second-round picks for Aaron. I've heard of maybe a second-round pick this year, second-round pick next year. I've also heard potentially second-round pick this year, conditional first next year, depending on if Aaron plays. There's kind of a lot. That's the other thing. A lot of stuff with conditional picks, because even if the Jets trade for Aaron, every year Aaron Rodgers has been having these wacky retirement things, and the Jets
Yeah.
don't want to be kind of caught like with a hot potato. They don't want to be stuck holding that, which is tough. Which is why they want compensation. Which I think is why which is why this trade is taking so long. But it would be really bad if they don't get Aaron, right? I mean, even if they do get Aaron, they might only get him for 1 year. It's a really tricky situation because they are built to win now. Like they're a team ready to win now. Maybe not built to win now. They're ready to win now. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's really tough because if you, I think even getting Aaron may not work out as well because he's even. I mean, it might not work out as well. Generally, he's been known to lose NFC Championship games. I'm sure he'll be good at losing AFC Championship games too. But sorry, laughing at my own joke.
The perfect
but
combo
I think,
of losing championship games, the Jets and Aaron
and
Rodgers.
it's the Jets, and it's the Jets, and it's the Jets. Yeah, I mean that's just why that I could see troublesome, especially because it's just 1 year. But they also, I mean, what do you think about them potentially either of their own choice? Like even if the Packers start to turn their tail around, but what if they start to look at the quarterbacks and analyze it and say, hey, we could trade up. Teams are going to be crazy enough to take Levis at 2.
Yeah.
Cardinals, we can offer the Cardinals a bag. They need everything, right? Buda Baker, I think, has requested a trade.
Yeah, he wants
off the Cardinals. Everyone, the Cardinals fire sale potentially, right? At least they need everything. So if you offer them an extra first, if you offer them your this year first and next year first, or if you hopefully you don't have to throw in too much more, but I don't have a trade calculator. They should be ready to trade. I mean, they should be ready to trade. Or if the team that trades up to 2 is the Colts, there's a lot of things there. If the Colts trade with the Cardinals at 3, if the Colts do that, then you could try to trade with the Cardinals at 4. If you can take a quarterback, that might be pretty good. But it might need to be Stroud, because do you think this team with a defensive-minded coach like Saleh, do you think they can develop a Levis or a Richardson? I feel like they might have more trouble. They have Nathaniel Hackett, I think, might be somewhere their QB coach or something, or their offensive coordinator.
I believe so. Yeah.
Also an Aaron Rodgers guy. They
100%. But here's the thing:
they're so built around Aaron.
They're making a move for obviously specific moves for Aaron Rodgers, but honestly, it's becoming a more and more, desirable place for a QB to head. They've got some wide receivers, young ones. They also signed another one. Hackett was a much better coordinator than he was head coach.
That's true.
So there's that.
Good running back.
And you tell me, you're setting it up, right? Would you rather have a developmental QB on that team that's has a lot of pieces, has a good defense, needs someone to just be better than the worst QB in the league? Or do you want to take a chance on Aaron Rodgers for maybe 1 year,
maybe two if you're lucky?
But if he wins, he's gonna leave. He's gonna retire. If they win this championship, if they win the Super Bowl,
he probably would.
And what's the scenario where he comes back? If they lose in the championship game, he's gonna come back. I don't know if I see that either. The dude was thinking about retiring this year.
If they don't make the playoffs, do we think he's gonna have the drive?
Right.
Or now do they have to trade him?
If they can go and get a QB, they should. That's what I would think about as the Jets.
Yeah.
And that sort of loops back to the Packers need to get this deal done, because if the Packers are the ones stuck with him when they've been trying to go with the Jordan Love route, and now they've basically come out and said Jordan's our guy. The entire the franchise no says we're going with him. We're paying this other guy $58 million. We got to get this off of our cap, and we got to get him out of our locker room.
You think Aaron sits there? That would be so toxic. Imagine the trade doesn't happen. Aaron decides, I'm not retiring. I'm sitting on this bench. You have to every game, the camera, every game, the camera, everyone will be talking about him. Every game.
Yes.
The NBC, Fox, they will not be able to resist panning to Aaron anytime an interception happens. Anytime anything happens, pan to Aaron.
The
money and the bag that Aaron is getting next year if he doesn't retire.
Oh yeah, he should not retire for $58 million. Whether it's riding the Packers bench and being an absolute distraction or going somewhere else and playing, I don't understand why he would. I mean, I guess if you have enough money, it doesn't matter, but that's a lot of money. So I just, the way I see it, the Packers, in my opinion, are the ones who have to make this happen. So if the Jets are only going to say we're only going to give you, whatever it is, a second round and a condition, whatever, they need to take it unless they think that they can offload him somewhere else. I don't know if I see that happening. So
Commanders.
Well, possibly, but that's the thing is anyone. It's a 1 year rental.
It's the same thing for the and it's the same thing for the Commanders, really. Unless you have an aging team. If you have a team that's ready to win, but like you also think it's like a last hurrah. The same way some of the Bucks guys have been leaving, there's still some guys on that team, but like I could see aging head coach. I could see like the way Bruce Arians retired. I could see if a sort of Aaron Rodgers or Matthew Stafford-esque situation, not that I say Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady or Matthew Stafford-esque, like go to a place. There's some old guys. Aaron Donald was thinking about retiring. Sean McVay, we've been talking about maybe retiring. Like, they have
if
stuff.
Not the Jets,
if
it's not the Jets, I think the only other option is if San Fran wanted to go crazy and do it.
I was gonna think the same thing.
They are ready. They're 100% ready. Aaron Rodgers, they're Super Bowl favorites with Aaron Rodgers on that team, no doubt.
And that's some quarterback depth right there. That's some quarterback depth. You got Brock Purdy as a backup there. You got Trey Lance that's some real quarterback depth you got on that team.
Absolutely.
And at that point, for the 49ers, trade price might be kind of low. At that point, you're like, wow, Pat, like you're 49ers, you're Kyle Shanahan, you're like, wow, you guys are doomed, right? You need an out. Where you're out, we'll give you a second. We'll be nice enough to give you a second.
Right.
Or whatever they end up saying.
Or something like
next year first or whatever.
3-team trade, you send Lance or Purdy.
Oh.
And because who needs, San Fran probably does, but you send one of these guys and
you get Darnold out there on the bench. They just signed Darnold to a contract.
Right. And then the Packers flip that guy for, if they like Jordan Love, they flip that guy for a pick with somebody else who wants a QB, who would want Purdy. So
that would make
it's very interesting.
That makes sense too, honestly. Jets trading for Lance or Purdy could make sense as well. If they get real doomed, that's a young quarterback. Makes sense being a relative term here.
I think
but
Purdy,
it's possible. I think it's possible.
If I was Jets,
Yeah, if you were the Jets, if you thought you could get either of them, really, because obviously that there's different stuff there. Any other topics we could bounce around. We could talk about. There's not too much unless you want to talk about your feelings on. Actually, you know what? I have a quick take back to the Patriots on this.
Yeah.
So the question here.
What do we got for the end of this episode for the big hot
question
takes
here?
in the draft?
Yeah. Final segment. How do you feel about drafting "quote unquote" less valuable positions? These are positions where we can say a guy like Bijan Robinson, top 5 prospect in the draft, one of the best prospects in the draft. Yeah, he might go at 28. Right. We can talk about him falling to the Cowboys or something, even though he's so good because he's a running back. Interior offensive line isn't always as highly rated. Linebackers. Obviously, these positions can go high, right? They can. I think I had listed some examples. Quentin Nelson went at 6. Kyle Pitts, tight end, went at 4. Safeties tend to be lower on. There's a lot of stuff like that. They can be picked high, but often aren't. And I think one potential thing to watch for the Patriots. My dad said this, longtime Patriots fan, because I'm from the area, right? Longtime Patriots fan. Patriots like their middle linebackers, and they like their first round middle linebackers, right? Gerard Mayo, heir apparent of Bill Belichick, even though he does not have that role. It seems like he will be the next head coach. That's its own which I find interesting, which I think would be interesting, but it's odd that the titles are odd. He was a first-round pick middle linebacker. They traded up to get him even. I checked this. They traded up to get him in the first round in like 2008, 2010, something like that. Dante Hightower, longtime Patriot, big guy, huge guy on that defense in their kind of second run of championships. Yeah. Also, first round middle linebacker. They prioritize that position. And I could see if they can trade back, I think 14 would be wicked high for that. But if they can trade back to 25, which is a Patriots thing, right? That they did multiple trade backs last year. It's Patriots classic to trade back. I could easily see them trading, but not loving anything, trading back to like 25, trading with the Cowboys if the Cowboys want something, whoever's back there, and picking a middle linebacker. There's no one who's really expected to go even in the first round. There's maybe like one guy who might be first round. Not a lot expected to go that high, but Patriots are known to pick guys who aren't expected to go first round. That's what happened last year.
Yep.
Just last year, they picked Cole Strange, which people thought the projection was a third round pick. Obviously, I know teams were higher on him. There's more to it than that. But the media was saying this guy was like third round, fourth round pick, like third round pick. But like I could easily see the Patriots reaching like 10 picks to pick a middle linebacker if they can trade back. I think that is something to look out for. I think watching the draft, that will be something to look out for. If not in the first round, in the second round. I could easily see middle linebacker being in the second round because they don't have a whole lot of talent there. They played pretty well last year. Their middle linebackers, Tavai and someone else, played pretty well last year, but like they are missing talent. They're missing they're missing what they've had for the past decade and a half on that team, and that's star middle linebacker. That is a big has been a big part of these Patriots defenses, especially with Devin McCourty retiring, a veteran there. Safety, also that sort of like quarterback of the defense sort of position. I could see them wanting to prioritize that position with some of these these Patriots veterans, longtime veterans, Dante Hightower, Devin McCourty, in those sort of I don't want to say cerebral, but that sort of role on the defense, like leadership roles on the defense. I could see them stepping up, trading back, taking a first round pick linebacker. I think it'd be very interesting. And that might be in favor of it even, but it would be at least interesting.
It's 100%, obviously, if a specific player is going to fit for what you need and your culture, and that's what Patriots seem to care about a lot. So if they see a guy who is really going to fit that culture, they're going to go after him, even if he's they could get him in a couple of rounds if they want.
Even if it's
now.
A reach potentially, yeah.
Right, if it's a reach. But generally, I think that if you look around the league, everybody needs, an edge rusher. Like everyone needs an edge rusher. Everybody needs someone on the offensive line. And so for me, it's like, I don't know. I kind of feel like if everybody always needs those, even if you pick a guy and he doesn't work in your team or you don't like him, teams will take another chance on him because he's an edge rusher. Versus a linebacker, which just doesn't seem like there's as much demand. I'm not sure, but it's been happened before. Cowboys took Leighton Vander Esch in the first round, I'm pretty sure, and he's been great. He just got a 2-year extension. So, I don't know. I just would generally think, listen, if everyone needs an edge rusher, pick one, and if he doesn't work out, flip him later. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what I definitely agree. I think that's what should happen, or potentially trading up for a tackle. They have more picks further back. Like, I think tackle's the biggest need on the team, probably. So that's why I think that's what they should do. Try to prioritize that. But if a guy falls, or like it doesn't, let me rephrase. If a guy doesn't fall, right? If there's enough of a run, you don't get one. That's when I think more interesting avenues could open. But yeah, I definitely agree that's what they should do. I think even if tackle's not there, I think edge would be more interesting. But I just not think that's a possibility at a less valued position. Any thoughts on less valued positions? It's a very deep tight end class. A lot of tight ends in this class. Is Dalton Schultz still on the Cowboys?
No, they lost him in free agency. I don't know to where.
I forget where he went. Yeah, because I knew he was a free agent.
They do have a couple of tight ends that I believe that they drafted the last couple of years. One was a rookie. One's name is
the Texans. There you go.
Ferguson. And Hawkinson, I think. I could be wrong, but
not the same as the one on the Vikings. But yes.
Oh, maybe it's I don't know. I'm not sure, but they have a couple of guys that they like. That's the reason that they let Schultz leave, because obviously Schultz was productive.
Because they like.
But they had that depth. I would be surprised if they take a tight end. And for the Cowboys, if they're going to take a pass catcher, they should take a wide receiver, in my opinion. I don't like them taking a tight end. Even if you look at these generational tight ends, sometimes they're just not making it. Travis Kelce, I don't know if he went even in the first round, but look at most recently, Kyle Pitts went 4th overall. Falcons suck. I mean,
Hey,
he's
hey,
good, but the
hey,
Falcons suck. So
Mariota. Yeah.
you know what I
If you
mean?
don't have a good quarterback, having that amazing tight end doesn't do as much for you, right?
Sure. So I guess
Yeah.
I suppose if a team has their, the Eagles, I think are like, yeah, they're in the top 10 right now. If they wanted to and they really like the tight end, I think that would be a crazy reach. But I suppose you could
Yeah.
see it. If this team that they're looking for another piece like that, I don't think the Eagles really are because they have Goddard. He's very good. But I
Yeah.
could see it. I guess I could see it, but that's the whole thing. Like at the right time,
Yeah.
right
There's a
pick,
fair amount
right
of
player.
depth as well. Yeah.
But I just don't see it.
Yeah. I agree. I know that I also think there's a fair amount of especially because this tight end doesn't often go in the first round. I think will be definitely a spot people can say, oh, we'll wait. We'll wait and take one of the second round. There's a bunch of good tight end prospects. People have talked. I saw an actual NFL official scout and analyst saying this is not just some random guy. Saying that tight end is definitely one of the strongest positions in this draft. There's potentially, I think he may have said 6 to 8 dudes who could be full-time starters in a couple of years. This is a amazing class, which also means it's deep, right? It also means you don't have to take a tight end at 15 or something. You can let it slide to your second round pick, trade up a bit if you need to if there's a big rush on tight ends. But
and tight end is one of those things where it very well might be the 5th tight end taken will be the best one. Obviously, there are times where it's clear, but it could very well be that the in 5 years the better one might have been in a 3rd round. So
yeah, definitely. I would definitely say that. Yeah, Mark Andrews, for example, was a 3rd round pick. And you could go. I'd have to go pull up other guys. I know even Gronk of all guys was, I think, a 2nd round pick.
Right, you think of some of the most influential tight ends.
Yeah, Kelsey, I think, is a 6th round pick.
Yeah, Kelsey, Gronk, obviously.
Kelsey was a 3rd round pick. Gronk was a mid 2nd round pick, right? He was pick 42. It wasn't even he was pick 33. He was mid 2nd round. Kelsey was top of the 3rd round. He was top of the 3rd round, it looks like, if I'm reading that correctly. But yeah, definitely a position you don't need to, if you want a superstar, it doesn't necessarily mean picking super high. So yeah, that's so maybe, yes, maybe some of these less valuable positions are less valuable for a reason, because perhaps a position like tight end or running back, you don't need, there's either because it's enough depth or because evaluating the guys, whatever. Yeah, tends to be guys left over. Anything else on that? Because otherwise, I think that's about it for us.
Yeah, I think that's it. Obviously, we're going to be watching along for the draft on Thursday, and sort of taking our notes about what happens. I'm sure there's going to be lots of fireworks. So probably what is going to happen is at some point after Thursday, we'll record. Maybe Friday night after the 2nd round and 3rd round. I think that is both those days.
Yeah, I think 2nd and 3rd are Friday night, so we could do Friday. That might still be only partway through. We might want to do later than that. Definitely
Saturday
after then,
or Sunday or something.
4th
But
and
anyway,
5th, we don't need to watch there. We don't need to talk as much about that necessarily.
Right.
If we can, sure. Yeah. Or if we can, right? If it's there to talk about, if we're there to talk about, Cowboys took 4 tight ends in the 4th round. Sure, that'll be interesting to talk about. But
yes.
that'll be
right. So I think
news.
Watch out for that post draft episode, and you can basically see where we all were wrong on every one of our takes in terms of valuable players to take, how the QBs shake out. Will Levis will end up going number 1 because I don't think I say he's the worst of the 4. These things will happen.
That would be funny.
So, but yeah, I think that's about it. You got anything?
I would shake things up. No, other than yeah. Imagine Will Levis at 1. I think that means the Texans have to take Bryce Young at 2, which means the same sort of thing of Stroud being available at 3, which means the same thing as the other. So actually, I don't think that would be as major as you think, because I think either way, I would expect Stroud. Either way, I'd expect Stroud to be there at 3 with Bryce Young and Levis off the board, even if Levis goes first. Right? I have to think Bryce Young's one of the top 2 picks. So I actually think it might be fairly similar to some of our now. Things may not change too much if that happens.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
That's all.
All right. Well, as always, thank you guys for watching 710 Sports with
Jack.
And Jared. We will see you next week after the draft. Enjoy this big day of football, and have a good one.
Yeah. See ya.